Hi everyone, welcome back to Lifting the Lamp. This video is a response video. It's a response to some of the comments that I received on my recent video on the dangers of working with demons. There were some comments on there that were quite surprising even to me, and maybe some misapprehensions about what I was trying to say in that video, or just disagreements which I want to give a counter argument to. So not so much clapping back, but definitely addressing some of the more interesting responses to my demon video, which seems to have stirred quite a bit of interest. So that's what I'm going to be doing in this video, keeping that discussion going deeper into some of the more pointy or controversial issues arising out of that. First, perhaps I need to offer a disclaimer to avoid some of the more simply corrected misunderstandings. This platform of mine is where I present my opinion on things. And yes, I'm presenting myself as a spiritual teacher with quite a bit of knowledge and expertise, which will be helpful to people and bring betterment to their path in a very objective way. But nevertheless, it is still my opinion, and you're welcome to go and find some other opinion somewhere else. I'm not a priest from an evangelical church. I'm not here, I'm not the Pope or a cardinal. I'm not here to tell you what to think, to take away your freedom of conscience and insist that you believe something because I said so. That's not the purpose of this exercise. I will try and persuade you of my point of view and present it as though it is true, because so far as I'm concerned, it is true. But that doesn't mean that I'm trying to force you to believe anything. And I know that might be a bit of an alien concept in today's day and age, where people are being compelled to say all sorts of things that they don't believe with their own conscience, with their own critical examination of the facts. But that's not what I'm doing here. So when I tell you don't work with demons, of course you can take that or leave that. But if I'm given an opportunity to present my opinion on that, I'm going to say maybe you shouldn't do it. That maybe there will be some unintended consequences to that exercise, and that it might be dangerous to you and to other people. I've explored the occult for a long time. I've gone down lots of different rabbit holes when it comes to esoteric knowledge. I've really been around, and so I've experienced a lot of different things, and some of those things were an encounter with the dark powers. And from time and experience, I've learnt that those powers are indeed nothing to be trifled with, and something that ought to be avoided. You can work with them if you want. Maybe you'll get something out of it, but in the long run, over an indefinite time period, in my experience, it becomes quite empty, and it becomes quite compromising even to your individual will and your individual consciousness, and what kind of forces you are allowing to influence that. And if I've encountered something which I have discovered is dangerous, and I can see other people who are trying to enter into a situation where that danger might be something they encounter, and they might cause harm to themselves, I believe that it is my duty to at least share that knowledge that I have, if it might dissuade somebody from going down that path and causing harm to themselves. I've at least discharged my duty knowing what I know. But there were certainly some people who seemed to think that I was trying to force a certain viewpoint on people. I wasn't. But there was that very forceful kind of reaction and a lot of other very forceful negative reactions to what I had to say about working with demons. And I'm not offended. You know, people were entitled to their opinions. But I have to say that I'm surprised. I didn't think that there would be so many people who would be running to the defense of literal demons and having a relationship with demons and having that as your kind of religion, if you will, that you follow in place of the kinds of forms of religion that went before. And again, there are reasons for that. The mainstream religions have done a lot of damage to their reputation down through the centuries. But even 20 years ago, even in occult circles, working with demons was something that would be considered quite taboo, and you'd have to be either very bold or a little bit unhinged to even think about working with demons in any serious way. I will let you determine which of those two I was. But it did come as a surprise how much things have changed. And I suppose in a way I shouldn't be surprised, knowing what I know about the times that we live in and the fact that this is the end of the age and it's the Kali Yuga. But still, I was quite taken aback. Not only by the number of people that were defending essentially demonolatry, but how strident they were in trying to disprove what I was trying to say, and even attack my character in ways that were quite unfair to try and preserve the integrity of this practice of working with demons. One of the accusations that was made against me that I found quite unfair and quite funny was that I simply had bad experiences with demons because I didn't know how to handle them, and I wasn't strong enough or knowledgeable enough, or I didn't respect them enough, or something like that. That couldn't be further from the truth. I have a lot of experience as a magician. I've worked with some very powerful entities, and one of the major workings that I've done in the past, which I may or may not do a video on, was the working with the 4 princes of evil and their 8 sub-princes and servient spirits, following the operation to attain knowledge and conversation with the Holy Guardian Angel. It was some years between me doing my own operation for knowledge and conversation and me summoning these powerful beings. But the purpose of that exercise was not to commune with the entities in order to, you know, to get them to do favors for me or anything. It was really about facing temptation, putting myself in a situation deliberately where I was being tempted by these very powerful dark forces, and giving them an opportunity to throw whatever they could at me to try and take me off the path and make me surrender to my passions, rather than staying true to my consciousness. And I was subjected during that working, which lasted for 3 days, through some very exacting spiritual tests. And fortunately, I was able to psychologically withstand that and spiritually withstand that, and I overcame the 4 princes of evil and all of the legions that served under them. So I know how to handle myself when it comes to demons. It's like I said in my video on working with demons, it just brings too much negativity into my life that I don't need. And there's other ways that I can get what I need in life without lowering my vibration to that level and without subjecting myself to that kind of energy, which I really don't enjoy being around. Another accusation that was leveled at me was that I haven't been able to let go of my Christian brainwashing, and that's why I don't like the idea of working with demons. I again find this hilarious because for years, from 2007 or 8, right up until maybe even as late as 2020 or 2021, I was all in following an occultist and a famous magical practitioner who literally called himself the Beast 666 and set himself to destroying everything that Christianity represented. So that is to say, I have seen the other side. It would certainly be an odd way for someone who's still got Christian brainwashing to behave if they were to willingly explore the beliefs of such a man and be fully open to them and the arguments against the religion that he was rebelling so heavily against. I've done videos on my faith journey before, from Christianity to Thelema, and then to something which is kind of neither. But I've not accepted any beliefs that I now hold lightly. I have gone through very rigorous contemplation, and I have thought very deeply about questions of religion and spirituality and morality, and I have questioned every tenet of Christianity, and I've come through that exercise agreeing with most of them, to be honest, after having tested them so heavily. The gold that is in the teachings of the Christ stood the test of the fire. But some of the things that some of these sort of darker kind of occult figures were promoting did not withstand the test. And that is why I eventually rejected any sort of notion that there was anything beneficial or necessary in working with demonic entities or having the kind of outlook on life, the kind of attitude towards life that was promoted through working with such entities. It is far too simplistic to simply say that I have been brainwashed by Christianity. A brainwashed person does not go through the agonizing, long process of questioning everything, every value that they have ever known in the way that I have. I was very much open to what the demons that I worked with had to tell me. Granted, I did use the traditional ceremonial magical way of working with demons as is presented in the Goetia, where there is the protective circle and the protective triangle. But in the latter days of my working with Goetic magic, it was less about protecting myself in the sense of, you know, some kind of like aversion and distrust of the entities, and more to do with just distinguishing the barrier between my consciousness and theirs so that we can have a dialogue without things getting too messy or muddled. So I was very much open to them. And yet, with that openness, with that trust that I tried to establish, working with Goetic entities in particular, even then, what I found was something which I found very deceitful, and something which did not have good intentions towards me, or perhaps any other person for that matter. One of the more benign responses to my video that I received was people defending the work that they had done with demons, where they had channeled a demon or done some practical magic to ask a demon for something, and they had been given something very useful to them, and something which helped them to develop themselves in a way that made them feel more successful in life, like they had more abundance in life. And, you know, I respect that. That's certainly something that can happen. And you may indeed go your entire magical career, if you're lucky, without ever having a experience where there is a demonic entity which has malevolent intent towards you, or is trying to deceive you in some way. But even then, you need to question whether what they're giving you is really what's best for you, and what is the limit to what they can offer you. Because in my worldview, the material world, the world that is separate from the world of the divine, of the absolute, it is inherently unsatisfying. Anything that you can gain, that you can obtain, that is of this world, will have its limit, will have its tenure, and then it will evaporate, and you will be left with nothing again. And so when you put your faith and your hope in obtaining this or that thing, you're always going to be disappointed. And another layer of it as well is, because we see things dualistically, we always see the thing that we want in the world as an absolute good. And when we get it and we find that it's not, that it contains some bad things as well, it's lower than what we expected, and we become disappointed. So the point I'm trying to make, it's a very Buddhist, very Gnostic kind of a point, is that this world is not as it seems. And, you know, demons can offer you things in this world, but whatever they offer you will turn to dust in the end, and be worthless in the end, simply because it is of the world. There is a far greater boon that you can win, which is the boon of consciousness, of self-realization, of union with the divine. And the demons aren't much interested in that. And if you were, you may try and ask them for something like that. Maybe to some limited extent they could offer you that. But, you know, why would you do that when you can ask for the same things from angels who specialize in getting you in touch with something higher? So I can kind of, while I appreciate that certain people are at that point where they just need to sort out the physical world first, the foundation that they're working from first, I still think there's a limitation to that. And ultimately, everything that the demons are promising you, one way or another, whether it's through their own deceit or just the illusory nature of the world, the things that they can give you, which are supposedly really good, are in fact just a deception. They're not what they seem. Another comment that I received was that, well, these demons, they're not really that bad, they're just the old gods, but they've been recast as villains by Christianity, and so that is how we approach them in our culture, but really they are powerful old gods. And so there's no reason why we can't reclaim those old gods, which have been demonized quite literally by Christianity. And again, there is some truth to this. I can appreciate this perspective. But there's kind of two things that I would say to that. One is that a lot of the pagan gods were not great. They were not very nice entities. They behaved rather like the American elite of today. So they were not pleasant beings. And insofar as we have developed morally as a species over the past 2,000 years, there are some things about many of the pagan gods which would be considered abhorrent today. So you need to ask yourself if you're really elevating yourself by communing with these beings. Do you really understand what those beings' character was considered to be like by our ancestors? Or are you looking at it through a kind of idealized lens, where we've created these modern characters which are really just that, modern characters who are inspired by old gods but really have nothing in common with them? So I guess what I'm trying to say is, you might want to just research very deeply any entity that you work with, because although ultimately the most important thing for any magic is, what our beliefs are that we take into it, when you're working with entities such as these, which have absorbed the psychic energy of thousands, if not millions of people over the centuries, they do take on a certain independent existence, and there is a kind of objective reality to them, which is irrespective of your opinion of them. And if you summon them, that's what you're going to get. So it's always good to research such entities before engaging them, to see if their values really match up with your own. Another thing that somebody said in one of the comments was that I was being too dualistic in the way that I was talking about demons. And so I can kind of see where they're coming from. The way that I was talking was very much in terms of a spiritual war and, the forces of light versus the forces of darkness. I don't necessarily think that that's the way that things have been for all eternity, but it certainly does feel like that's the point that we're at now. There is a collision between two universal powers, cosmic powers, that is occurring through the human race. That's just the reality that I've observed. And perhaps it is dualistic to talk about there are demons that will likely cause you harm and there's these other entities that won't. But we do live in a dualistic universe and a dualistic world. There are things which will cause us pleasure and there are things that will cause us pain, and that's just the universe that we live in. And it's important to acknowledge those two things. It's important to be able to distinguish between the berry that will give you sustenance and the one that will poison you. But often what people mean when they tell somebody that they're being dualistic is seeing things in too much of a black and white sense, like one thing is all bad and the other thing is all good. And, with no nuance in between. I can appreciate that point of view as well. And I think that there is nuance. And I've kind of discussed some of that nuance in some of my earlier videos on what are angels and demons. Essentially, the Abrahamic faiths are not the only religions in the world that have thought carefully about what the different planes of existence might look like. And, in the mainstream, Nicene Christian worldview, there's eternal punishment in hell and there's eternal grace in heaven, and that situation is fixed for all eternity and can never be changed, and there can be nothing good in evil and nothing evil in good. However, in Hinduism and in Buddhism, it's actually possible for a being that is living in the demonic realm to engage in action and make choices that lead to merit and lead to good karma, which will eventually allow them to be reborn into a non-hell realm. And, conversely, there are beings in the realm of the devas roughly equivalent to angels or gods, who can become enamored with the world of attachments and the world of, limitation and all of that sort of thing, and they can actually fall. They can actually become something lower than a deva. And we have stories of fallen angels even in Christianity. There can be angels who fall. There can be demons who ascend and find redemption. And in fact, I heard one story from one spiritual group that I was in, of a circle of people who were doing their meditations and their chanting and all of that, and one of these demonic entities actually entered the room to try and mess with them. And the group leader actually, engaged this entity with compassion and saw the suffering that they were in, and gave that being an opportunity to be released from that suffering, to be reborn into a better existence. And that entity actually made the choice to do that, to ascend to a higher plane. So it's not black and white, and I recognize that. But it's usually the case that these kinds of entities are quite dangerous. There's always going to be exceptions to the rule, but a lot of the time generalizations tend to be right most of the time. That's why they're generalizations. And it's something that people don't want to acknowledge, because generalizations can lead to a lot of unfair assumptions about people. But all that I'm saying is, if something has such a bad reputation as the demonic does, then maybe don't be so quick to trust those kinds of entities. Given what society is like in this day and age, and how people treat each other, I barely even trust human beings most of the time, let alone demons. So why would you trust them? And if they have indicated to you time and again through their influence on the culture, for example, that they want to corrupt you and they want to destroy you, and they want to make a mockery of everything in your nature that is natural and good by warping that, why would you trust that when they've told you exactly what they plan to do to you? I hope that more and more people can wake up to exactly what it is that these beings, by and large, want with us. If you are in some kind of a situation where one of these entities appears, you have an encounter with a demonic entity, that is an entity which should be respected, not trusted perhaps, but at least respected. And maybe that being wants to be released from its existence. More likely it doesn't, in which case, if you come under spiritual attack, you need to be prepared to respond in kind. If you're attacked by a wild animal, you would have to defend yourself. You wouldn't think about the dualism between wild animals that attack people and civilized, intelligent human beings. You just do what you need to do. Ward, banish, get rid of it as soon as possible. As soon as you've established that there's no reason for that being to be there anymore, you just need to make it leave. The longer that kind of energy sticks around, the more troublesome it becomes. Another criticism that I received for my demon video was that I was being divisive by saying that people shouldn't work with demons. And this one I find particularly ironic, because I explained in my video that the nature of the demonic realm, the nature of the qliphothic realm, is one of division and infighting, And the thing that distinguishes it from the divine and the heavenly realms is that the heavenly realms are unified realms where all the beings cooperate with one another, and there is a sense of the oneness of all things. So accusing me of being divisive is obviously showing a preference for the unity of the absolute. But then why criticize me for advocating for not being drawn down into that world of division and aspiring instead for the divine? I'm not speaking against working with demons to be divisive, but to be less divisive. Some of this does come down to, again, the fact that we live in a dualistic world and we're limited in our language for explaining the relationships between things, and the difference between the manifest and the divine immediately sets up another dualism which is inescapable so long as we inhabit the dualistic world. But I'm not going to get defensive about saying that we should preference trying to return to that unity, and we should distance ourselves from the things that shatter that unity and shatter our own consciousness and bring us down energetically. And I want to just finish by reiterating what I really think was the most important message of that video on working with demons, which perhaps got lost on people. The main point of the video was to say that you don't need any other beings to do anything. You only need yourself. Yeah, and I realize that I'm saying this as somebody who has worked with angels, which is kind of, asking to see the answers to the test questions, so to speak. But even then, the answer was still, according even to the angels, to just look to yourself, and that's the most important thing. The point I'm trying to make is you only need yourself. You don't need to rely on demons or anything else in order to be empowered, in order to exercise your will and do what you need to do on the spiritual path. I wasn't speaking as someone who, is like a fundamentalist Christian who's clobbering people with the Bible and saying, you have to believe in Christ Jesus, or you're going to hell, and that's why you shouldn't work with demons. Maybe in a way I was telling people to look to Christ, insofar as we all have our own inner Christ, which represents the solar nature within us, the kind of self with a capital S within us, which is our true divine nature, expressed through love. But I certainly wasn't proselytizing about any kind of mainstream religion, which is where a lot of people kind of start from when they're talking about issues like the dangers of demons and various forms of the occult. And I think often those people have much too broad a brush stroke in terms of the kinds of practices they condemn. That wasn't the purpose of the exercise, and I shouldn't be lumped in with those people. I'm telling you to look to yourself once again. And if you're allowing yourself to come under the influence of demonic spirits, you're not doing that. And perhaps you want to augment your consciousness in that way. Perhaps it's the path that you're on. So be it. But I just don't want to be misunderstood. I want to be very clear about what kind of a solution I'm proposing to, working with these demons, or what kind of an alternative that I'm proposing. So, I hope that that's cleared up some of the uncertainties or answered some of the criticisms that I received for my demon video, and maybe generated a bit more interest around this topic, which seems to be getting quite a bit of interest. So I thought it was worth me exploring some of these things a bit more deeply. But thank you for listening, as per usual. Like the video if you enjoyed. Subscribe to my channel to support my work. You can also subscribe to my Odyssey account to support me there. And leave any comments you have down below. And I'll see you next time.